Well, let me tell you something about the placenta. It's one of my favorite parts of the body to talk about. And I sometimes refer to it as the selfless servant because it serves for 9 months and then just vanishes. It is so fragile that in gross anatomy we don't dissect the placenta in the medical school. We just go get a fresh placenta from the hospitals because it just breaks down very quickly. What does this organ do? Oh my! It's almost easier to tell you what it doesn't do. It's not a heart, doesn't pump blood, which, by the way, is why the heart has to develop so early in the baby. You get that big cardiac prominence in the embryo, and it starts beating very early because the placenta doesn't help the baby out with a pumping heart. And the placenta is not the central nervous system either, or the brain, and that too develops very early in the development of an embryo. That leaves a lot of things. The placenta, for example, functions as a lung with the help of the mother. In fact, it's possible for a baby to be born where the placenta, or where the lung has failed to develop. And that baby can go to term. But as soon as the placenta is taken away, then of course the baby would die, because with the help of the mother, that blood can be oxygenated in the placenta. It's a urinary system, allows the baby's kidneys to develop without having to be at least fully used or maximally used. I mentioned respiratory. It's a digestive system with all the digestive glands. It's an endocrine system. It's an immune system, again, with the help of the mother. And this allows the baby to develop comfortably without having to both use and develop the organ at the same time. I liken it to if you're going to have a house built, the builder wants you to stay away until they get the basement dug and the frame in, but the baby has to be kind of used as it's being built. So when the placenta takes over all these functions I've mentioned and several others, it allows the builder to build the body and use the placenta for part of the function. It's interesting, when the baby when the baby's born, the placenta then comes out as the afterbirth, and it unplugs from the uterine wall. And when it unplugs, several arteries and veins, a little smaller in diameter than soda straws, are just literally truncated or torn open. At term, all of the blood of the mother goes through that placenta every 10 minutes. So that's a very high rate of blood flow. This would mean that when the placenta unplugs from the uterine wall, you'd expect total insanguination of the mother in 10 minutes. But it doesn't happen. In a normal delivery, maybe a cup of blood is lost. And that's because there are these wonderful little hemostats, the surgeons call them, little clamps on all of the vessels. They're sphincters, like a purse string. They're muscular. And as soon as the placenta unplugs, they all clamp down very quickly. And so we can say that tearing the placenta off the uterine wall is probably the worst wound any human being ever gets and lives to tell the story. And we can do it because of the marvelous provision of these little sphincters that close the vessels off. It's not the kind of thing I would expect would happen by dumb luck. Yeah, some animals, of course, eat the placenta after giving birth, and it confers certain nutritional, hormonal benefits. It's not something I think humans are inclined to do, nor is it necessary, of course. But we differ from other animals in that sense. Our placenta is only about this big around, about 7-8 inches across, about 1 inch thick in the middle. And when you look at the surface that comes off the endometrial wall, you're looking down on a little forest of trees. The technical name for those trees are cotyledons. About 20 of these little trees. The crown of the tree about the size of maybe a marble. And it has a trunk, one trunk, and many branches out to twigs. And the whole placenta has, they say, about 20 of those little cotyledons or trees. When the placenta unplugs, you can see it right there on the surface. And it's a very complicated, very expanded surface. It's been estimated that the surface of the placenta is about the size of a living room area rug, maybe 8 by 11 feet. And what's really amazing, as far as we know, it's one cell on the surface. That would make it the largest cell in the body, the size of a living room area rug. Seamless, and is formed from thousands and thousands of separate cells called cytotrophoblasts that fuse together to make this big seamless structure that has millions of nuclei, but all in one membrane, so one cell. We call that kind of a cell a syncytial cell, and it would be easily the largest syncytial cell in the body. But what that means is maternal blood and fetal blood are separated by a seamless barrier. So baby's blood is rather like the sap running inside of the tree. And mother's blood is rather like the wind blowing through this little grove of 20 trees. It's outside the tree. And then the syncytial trophoblast would be like the bark on the tree. So everything that goes from mother to baby or baby to mother has to cross that seamless barrier. And some things go passively, like water, oxygen following concentration gradients. Other things require carrier proteins to actually carry them across. It's interesting. The baby has to make its own blood because the two bloods are separated. And to make blood, the baby has to make hemoglobin that binds oxygen. To make hemoglobin, it needs iron. And its only source of iron is mother's blood. And I've got bad news for you. Iron doesn't cross the placental barrier on its own. That'd pretty much be the end of life right there, if that was our only problem. But there is a protein of the approximately 100,000 different proteins we have in our body. One of them is called transferrin. And transferrin binds to iron in mother's blood and carries it across the placental barrier and releases it to baby's blood. No transferrin, no people, no placental mammals. One little mistake like that could be the end. It wouldn't make any difference how well everything else worked in your body. What good is a great liver with no blood, or a great heart, or a great lung, or a brain? I mean, it all has to fit together. It's like a chain, you know. One weak link is the undoing of the chain. All of the strong links count for nothing if one weak one is in the chain. So that's one of the reasons I find the evidence for evolution not very compelling. It's too many things can go wrong that would be the undoing of everything else. You know, if people let their imagination run wild, of course, many people begin with a starting assumption that there is no God. Certainly many of the people I've worked with in my career did have that starting assumption. And if you're quite certain that the material world is all there is, matter, energy, time, and space, then you're really left no choice but to explain how nature left to itself would make eyes and hearing apparatus of the ear and the placenta. And no matter how ludicrous the explanation might be, it's absolutely necessary simply because you've begun with the starting assumption that there's no creator. So that's one of the wonderful things about being a Christian. We can be rational. We can see design for what it really is.